Brilliant. Well, I make it 1:30, so I'm going to get started now. It's really, really lovely to be here, and a huge thank you to Deb and the team for inviting me to talk about the Blended Learning Consortium today. So I'm going to kind of start off by introducing myself and really talking through the BLC and what we do, and hopefully kind of give you a bit more of an insight into some of the BLC resources that we use. So all of these are available to Grimsby and the Tech Partnership, but those of you that aren't members of the BLC, hopefully you might find some of this information quite useful. And we're going to talk about some kind of blended learning pedagogy as well. So even if you're not a member and don't have any intention on joining, hopefully it's good just to have a discussion about blended learning and how we can move this forward with a real quality pedagogical approach to it. So feel free to ask me any questions as we go along. I've got one eye on the chat box, but if I ignore it for any reason, please do just give me a nudge and pop your mic on and ask away. So first things first, then, my name's Amy Hollier. I'm the head of blended learning at the Heart of Worcestershire College, and we actually run the Blended Learning Consortium from the Heart of Worcestershire College. Been there since October last year, so many people have said, oh my goodness, you got into blended learning just before the pandemic hit, and was at the kind of the peak point that I could ever wish to join something like this. So before that, I was the director of teaching and learning at University College Birmingham, so I've got a real kind of teaching and learning background that I hopefully bring into what we do with the BLC. So many of you have introduced yourselves, which is really great in the chat box. And it's really nice to see that we've got people from different institutions and from people across different vocational subject areas as well, which is great to see. So in today's session then, I'm going to talk about the benefits of blended learning. I'm sure many of you have already experienced a lot of them already. But also just to kind of dig a bit deeper and think actually it shouldn't be about a knee-jerk reaction to what's going on in the world at the moment. This is a really exciting kind of mode of delivery for teaching and learning. I'm going to talk a bit about what the BLC is, what resources we have available, how we can structure effective blended learning, and how we can make the most of the resources that we've got available as well. So this isn't a sales pitch by any shape, but what it is just to kind of really bring to the fore how we can really improve and enhance what we have available and that kind of offer for the students really. So please do feel free to chip in at any point. So I think this goes without saying that there's so many advantages to blended learning, and there is an awful lot of research actually that states why blended learning is not only a preferred mode of learning for some learners, but also a really effective way of teaching and learning. And it brings with it a number of different skills that we can use to kind of enhance for more employable learners when they leave us. So digital literacy, it kind of forces learners into developing their digital literacy skills because they're having to access learning. They're having to be independent in the way that they access that learning and work through the resources that are available or the activities that teachers put online for them. I've said it so many times since the pandemic struck, and it was an absolutely awful thing to happen to us all. But we also have to recognise that it was probably the best CPD that we could have ever wished for around digital and e-learning and things like that, because it forced us all into being our own kind of problem solvers really, and using this technology and trying to be really creative in the way that we use it. So I'm sure you'll agree that we've all learned an awful lot since this hit back in March. It's a really good way of having a consistent approach as well to delivery. If you're having to deliver at scale, it means that you can ensure that all learners have access to exactly the same information, and they're not getting mixed messages from having too many different lecturers or too many different bits of information. So you can really try for a consistent approach. We've spoken about the creativity and innovation. I've seen some amazing things that have happened over, the end of last academic year and what's going into the beginning of this academic year. And things like some of our computer lecturers were actually getting students to program remote controls cars from their house with the remote control in the remote control car in the lecturer's house, and they were kind of making them do all sorts of tricks and things like that at each other's houses. And I just thought, you know what? If we didn't have this pandemic where we're having to switch to remote learning, there's no way on earth that that would have happened. So it's offered a lot of opportunity. I think you had to kind of see it to get how good it was, but it was pretty spectacular. It can help with data capture, assist with formative assessment and learner tracking. We've all seen what an absolute shambles happened with the A-level results, with the GCSE results. This kind of more of an approach to formative assessment and building up a picture of the learner's progression as they move throughout the year can only be a good thing to build up a really robust picture of where that learner is at within their learning journey. So blended learning can offer that kind of data capture. And also learning can be personalized. We've spoken so much about differentiation, but this actually can give you an opportunity to open up learning to those learners that can maybe be extended a little bit. It can help you focus on lower level learners that maybe need to repeat certain tasks a few times before they're able to move on. So there's a lot to be said for personalization of learning, and it shouldn't all be about just plonking videos and resources onto a VLE and just leaving learners to it. So I think that there's, we have to dig a bit deeper and we have to offer more. So the BLC then, we have over 140 member colleges across the UK. Excuse the very grainy picture there of the map, but as you can see, we've got member colleges right throughout Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, all throughout England and the south, right the way down to the Isle of Wight and also Jersey as well. And the Blended Learning Consortium was created back in 2015 because the FELTAG report was released and it said that 10% of all learning had to be done online. And obviously colleges were really shocked about, this kind of new move to e-learning and, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? How are we going to fill that time? Well, we realized that very quickly that it is a really expensive way to develop learning content as well, doing e-learning properly. So a kind of crowdfunding method or model was put into place whereby colleges were all invited to pay a certain amount of money each year, and that was all pulled together. And with that money, members were paid to create material that could then be disseminated back out to colleges. So when we say by the sector, for the sector, we really, really mean it. It's all of the content is written by subject specialists from all of these kind of 140 different member colleges. And we know that they're the absolute creme de la creme of, subject specialists. So we are really confident with the content that is within these learning packages. And it's all of the subject areas are voted for by the consortium as well. So we know that the content that we're creating is actually relevant and useful and needed at that point in time by the colleges that vote for it. So now, after all of those years, we've developed over 1,800 hours of content. 125 videos, which is ever growing, and that's across 43 different subject areas. So we'll talk a little bit about those in a short while, but the subject areas we feel are the ones that, like we say, the members have voted on, but are the ones that are the most useful. And they're all very current, aligned to curriculum, and updated as regularly as we possibly can. So that goes from things like animal management, because I know that Sarah does that, for example, right the way through to motor vehicle, sociology A level, all sorts of different things. And we think that we've probably got the biggest spread of FE vocational learning content from any other provider, really. So what we do, we are really proud of. And some people might say, oh, but it's some subject areas a little bit drier than others, but actually it's not about the kind of individual learning objects. It's about all the support that you put in place around it. So we've got some fantastic content, and I hope that you've already looked into the content that we've got available, but you can explore that a little bit further after the presentation. So have a browse of the resources when you get a chance, but this is just a snippet of some of the stuff that we've got available. Again, people have told us, well, we're all in the same boat, aren't we here? We understand that maths and English is probably the subject area that learners are a little bit more reticent to get involved with. So we've contextualized some aspects of maths. So we've got contextualized maths in catering, in business, hair and beauty, health and care, just because we know how much of a struggle it is, and we're trying to make it as relevant as we possibly can. So when you look into the resources, you'll see that not only have they got a subject heading, but then it also breaks it down into each individual learning object. So each one of these titles within this table, excuse me, is a 1 hour learning object. So it's really nice. You can break them down, and some of them are relevant for, to drop into other courses. So, for example, English level 2, you might take some aspects of the English level 2 course and drop them into another vocational course area because they're relevant for that. So you might want to help with some study skills or something like that, or within your induction, you might want to introduce some punctuation or spelling help. So you can use them however you like, really, and you just take the individual objects and drop them into your own course area. So we've also got a load of videos, and this is always being updated as much as we possibly can. I think Grimsby actually have done probably the majority of our video development. All of them are short, sharp kind of demo videos, so between 3 to 5 minutes long. And I know that Grimsby, you can access them on Planet eStream. Other providers use ClickView, which we've got a library on. Or if you don't have any kind of video repository, we can give you the links to the videos. So they're really useful, because I think, we've all seen how Instagram stories and TikTok have taken off. Learners love to learn through the medium of video. So the more we can put on there for video content, the better, really. And what we're trying to do with the newer video work that we're doing, starting this academic year, is to really align it to assessment and learning objectives. So learners will be able to make that kind of crossover, quite easily. So yeah, the video work is all available now. As I said, we've got a huge amount of content all ready to go, but if ever anybody's interested in making any of those videos, then please do let me know, because we pay for videos to be created. So if you think there's a certain subject area that would really benefit from a series of videos, then I'd be more than happy to talk about getting those developed. So some updates from us then. Coming this year, these are some of the subject areas that we've got development in. Tutorial stuff is actually ready now. So we've got work around mental health, so sexual health, drugs and alcohol awareness, etc. So there's 30 sessions of that have just literally been released. GCSE Maths and English, really keen to make sure that we have really current learning objects around those areas. So those are in development as we speak and will be released shortly. Digital functional skills. We're all aware now that learners need to develop digital functional skills more now so than ever. And so that will be released very soon. And also teacher training level 4 and level 5. Again, we've had huge interest in that. So that's quite exciting that that's coming. And like I said about the video work is always in development. But one of the most exciting things that's been developed this year, this was really in response to feedback that we had from members of the BLC that were like wanting to use Microsoft Teams really desperately instead of their kind of Moodle site or instead of other VLEs. But Microsoft Teams at the time couldn't support SCORM functionality, which is what all of our learning objects are developed in for tracking purposes. So Microsoft actually paid into a partnership of development with this company called Go1, who are an Australian company, and they've actually built this product now, which is an app that sits within Microsoft Teams, and it allows anyone to literally scroll through the BLC catalogue of content and just pick whatever learning objects they like, and they'll drop them directly into Microsoft Teams, which is amazing because it means that all of your learning content can now be housed directly within Microsoft Teams. So it's a really great area of progression that, and it offers the same tracking functionality as well. So those of you that have got any questions on that, I know Elaine Topham from Grimsby's been doing a lot of work with that, so she'd be more than happy to help out to get that up and running. So before we go on to the kind of pedagogical side of it, I think the most important thing to note is that the most powerful and valuable aspect of any type of teaching and learning is a teacher's passion. And so it doesn't matter if you're delivering through technology or you're doing face-to-face teaching and learning or any kind of delivery, the thing that's going to really hook those learners in is that teacher's passion. So whatever you do, just make sure that that comes through in any kind of delivery mode, because I think people get too wound up about what technology they're using or how they're delivering things. If you've got the passion, then you're absolutely fine. And that's important to remember. So I'm looking at the time, and I think we might need to leave this bit to the end if we can, but I am keen to know what your own challenges are with blended learning. But I just want to talk through a couple of points about the pedagogy of blended learning, because again, I think that's often forgotten. And lots of people see it as something totally different to what they're used to doing, when actually it's not that difficult to just take what you do, because you obviously do it really, really well, and just put it into this kind of blended learning format. So we've come up with a bit of a model, really. This was more to support some of our lecturers at Heart of Worcestershire College, because they'd often say to us, you know, we really want to do this properly, but we need a bit of structure. And we all love a bit of structure, don't we? So we put together this model, which you may or may not find useful, but this was really how to lay out your virtual learning environment, or any kind of area where your learners will access this kind of blended learning. So the main things we thought were, you always have to make sure that you introduce the topic as you would in a classroom, and then clearly outline the objectives for the session so that the learners know exactly what's going to be expected of them and what they are supposed to achieve by the end of this learning episode. And then I'm sure you've probably heard asynchronous and synchronous mentioned several times now over, the back of last academic year, and now over your planning in the summer. Asynchronous is very much about the independent learning activities, and synchronous is the live learning activities or the live sessions. And researchers stated that you should have a blend of both for it to be successful. And to be truly blended, they say have a blend of asynchronous and synchronous, but we all recognize that you can't always do that, but try where you can. So the independent learning tasks then that the learners can work through in their own time should really be mixed up so that there's a real variety of different activities and things to do. So you need your theoretical input, and we would say your theoretical input could be like a BLC learning object. So if you're doing English, for example, one of your sessions on punctuation or spelling or something like that. And within those individual learning objects, there's micro assessment built in. So there's some little questions or activities that they'll have to do within that individual learning session. And then try and encourage a bit of collaboration amongst the group, not so that the lecturer has to necessarily get involved, but just so that you can get them talking to each other and communicating and collaborating. So set little group tasks where they can talk to each other and draw together information. Try and remember extension activities where, if a learner is flying through this, then put in some extra extension activities. And it's, we all spoke about stretch and challenge before, but it is the old adage of you need to make sure that learners are pushed as much as you possibly can if they have the capacity. And then also set some flip tasks so that you've got something prepared ready for your live online session. All of these activities and ideas there should all be supported with knowledge checks. So they should all have some kind of questioning or any way of checking knowledge to make sure that learners know that, one, they are being monitored, two, you're able to check what learning has taken place, and three, just so that you have a good idea of how they're managing to work through this piece of learning, because you might have to go back and kind of fill in the gaps. So then have a live online session where you can, that's really interactive, encourage learner contributions, make sure it's recorded for those learners that can't access it at that given time, because, it is so difficult now, isn't it, with ensuring that people have connectivity. We've all seen it, your internet might drop out, so make sure it is recorded. And then have a plenary at the end of your VLE page for that topic area or that subject area, where you really refer back to the learning objectives, make sure you identify the gaps in knowledge, and then that will help you develop and progress through your individual learning aspects as you move through the scheme of work. So I don't know if that will be helpful to you, but it's certainly been really helpful for us just to try and add a bit of structure. So just kind of quickly then, because I know that time is running away with us a little bit here. I think it's really important when we're designing blended learning that, aside from those activities and all sorts of things that are fancy and, videos and BLC resources and all of that, you need to make sure that learners have the opportunity to demonstrate and apply learning, because otherwise it turns into just an online repository. And then you see them in class when you're doing the face-to-face delivery and they look at you really blankly. So it has to be interactive and engaging. Try and give them tasks where they have to independently problem solve. We've all seen those 21st century learning skills. Problem solving is one of those skills that will be expected by employers in the future. So develop that now, and they love problem solving when you do it right. And offer opportunity to collaborate. I think one of the worst things about the pandemic is that we've all been quite insular. in that, you know, we've been told to stay at home and we've lost that social aspect. We need to build that up as much as we possibly can, and blended learning does really give that opportunity for learners to collaborate, not only with their own classes but wider classes, you know, link up with classes from other institutions or other organisations, and really try and broaden their horizons through the power of technology. But most importantly, do what is right for you and your learners, because it's all well and good someone saying you should do this, you should do that. Nobody knows your learners better than you do. So you have to do what is right for you and your learners. Don't try and do all sorts of fancy tech if you don't feel really confident with it. Keep it simple. Know that you're confident with it and you'll absolutely fly. But blended learning is a great opportunity. And I think if we get the structure and the pedagogical approach right, it could open us up to a whole new, really exciting way of delivering amazing teaching and learning. So I'm going to wrap it up there because I'm really conscious of the time, but thank you so much for just kind of listening and participating. Has anyone got any questions at all? Feel free to jump on your mic or go in the chat box.
I've got a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I've used blended learning in a previous post when I was teaching in FE. Do you think some of it is sort of adaptable for HE as well, looking at some of the tutorial stuff and the mental health stuff particularly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, just because there might be a level attached to it doesn't mean that there's learners in HE that wouldn't really benefit from it. So mix and match as much as possible. Ignore the kind of subject level if you think it would be appropriate. I think there's an awful lot there that would be useful to HE, and I know that there are a couple of institutions actually that do use aspects of it. So and also remember that we've kind of lost a whole chunk of learning this year that people might need to catch up on. So perhaps use it as some catch-up resources as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. Just looking at the chat box. Brilliant. Any other questions just before we wrap up? I think it's pretty quiet. Excellent. Well, just thank you so much for your time, and it's been really nice to engage with you in this forum. It's been a brilliant event, and if ever you've got any questions or anything, then please do feel free to get in touch with me. I'll drop my email address in the chat box if anyone wants to have a chat outside of this. But thank you ever so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Amy. Thank
Cheers,
you.
bye.
Thanks, Amy. I'll see you in a minute,
Thanks
Amy.
all.
Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
See you in a bit. Well done. See you in a bit.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.